Hello dear students, welcome to our YouTube channel Literature Insights, an easy platform to learn English language and literature in English. This is part second video on active voice and passive voice. In earlier video we have seen active voice and passive voice part first. In that video I have discussed with you some of the basic rules of active voice and passive voice and how does the tenses change in active voice to passive voice. So in this video I have come up before you with another major rules or formulas for changing active voice to passive voice. So let's study active voice and passive voice part 2. So now here we can see use of modal auxiliaries in voice. How do we use modal auxiliaries in voice? For using modal auxiliaries in active voice to passive voice, we have to follow certain kind of structures and formulas for transformation. So now here you can see the structures and examples of active voice and passive voice using modal auxiliaries can, may, must, might. Here I have given formulas of active voice and passive voice. So now formula of active voice: subject plus can oblique may oblique must oblique might plus verb plus object. In passive voice we have a subject plus can may must oblique might plus be plus past participle plus by plus object. So this is the formula or structure for active voice and passive voice. So now let's study examples of active voice and passive voice using modal auxiliaries can, may, must, might. He must find a job this week. So this is active voice. Here we can see the subject is active. And now in passive voice we have example: a job must be found by him this week. So this is passive voice. Second example: a few guests might visit us today. Passive voice: we might be visited by a few guests today. So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice using modal auxiliaries must and might. So the student has to keep in mind these formulas for changing the active voice to passive voice using modal auxiliaries like can, may, must and might. The next, using modal auxiliaries may have oblique must have, might have, should have. Here I have given a structure. So in active voice, subject plus may oblique must oblique might oblique should plus have plus verb plus object. Then in passive voice we can see subject plus may plus must plus might plus should plus have plus been plus past participle plus by plus object. Here I have given example: they may have availed of the facility. So now here in this structure we can see subject plus may plus have plus past participle of the verb and object. So this is the formula of active voice using modal auxiliaries may have, must have, might have and should have. In passive voice, the facility may have been availed of by them. So this is the example of passive voice. Second example: you should have completed the homework. The homework should have been completed by you. So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice using modal auxiliaries like may have, must have, might have and should have. The student has to keep in mind these structures and formulas for changing active voice to passive voice. Then next, changing voice of the imperative sentence. How do we change the imperative sentence from active voice to passive voice? So here I have given some rules. Number 1, imperative sentences expresses a request, command, advice, obligation, suggestions. Second, imperative sentence begins with the verb missing an object. So imperative sentence always begins with the main verb and it also missing an object in the sentence. Number 3, while making the passive voice sentence, the structure is used. While making the passive voice sentence of the imperative sentence, we have to use the following structure as, now here the structure: let plus object plus be plus verb. So this is the formula. The student has to keep in mind this formula for the imperative sentence, changing from active voice to passive voice. Then similarly, we also use the expressions like requested to, ordered to, advised to, etc. for changing the active voice to passive voice of imperative sentence. Now here, examples of imperative sentence in active voice to passive voice. Help the poor, let the poor be helped. Change the voice, let the voice be changed. Let us go for morning walk. It is suggested that we should go for a morning walk. So these are the examples of imperative sentence in active voice to passive voice. Then changing the voice of interrogative sentence. Now here we can see formulas. The interrogative sentence begins with am, is, are, was, were. These are the to be past participle in present tense and past tense. So here I have given formula or structure for active voice and passive voice using the interrogative sentence begins with am, is, are, was and were. So am oblique is oblique are oblique was oblique were plus subject plus verb plus ing plus object plus question mark. In passive voice we have a structure am, is, are, was, were, subject which was object in active voice plus being plus past participle plus by plus object. So these are the formulas of active voice and passive voice. So using these formulas the student can easily change active voice to passive voice. Am I following him? Is he being followed by me? Second sentence, was Arvind writing a novel? Was a novel being written by Arvind? So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice. Interrogative sentence begins with am, is, are, was and were. The student has to keep in mind these structures very carefully so they can easily change the interrogative sentence begins with am, is, are, was, were from active voice to passive voice. Then next, the interrogative sentence begins with have, has, had. So here also we have a structure in active voice and passive voice. Have oblique has oblique had plus subject plus past participle plus object plus question mark. So this is the formula for active voice. In passive voice we have a structure have oblique has oblique had plus subject which was earlier object in active voice plus been plus past participle plus by plus object plus question mark. So here I have given example. Have you eaten a mango? In passive voice, has a mango been eaten by you? Had he helped you? Had you been helped by him? So these are the examples of interrogative sentence begins with have, has and had. Then interrogative sentence begins with do, does and did. Here we have formulas in active voice and passive voice. Do oblique does oblique did plus subject plus verb plus object plus question mark. In passive voice we have a structure am oblique is oblique are plus subject which was earlier an object in active voice plus being plus past participle plus by plus object. Now here we have a example. Do you feed the cat? Is the cat being fed by you? Does the teacher teach the lesson? Is the lesson being taught by the teacher? Did he help you? Were you helped by him? So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice using the interrogative sentence begins with do, does and did. So the student has to keep in mind carefully the structures or formulas of this interrogative sentence. Then the interrogative sentence begins with shall, will, should, would, can, could. Here we have formulas. In active voice, shall oblique will oblique should oblique would oblique can oblique could plus subject plus verb plus object plus question mark. In passive voice we have a structure shall oblique will, should oblique would, can oblique could plus subject which was earlier object in active voice plus be plus past participle plus object plus question mark. Here we have examples. Can you train these cadets? Can these cadets be trained by you? Will you help them? Will they be helped by you? Should he look after the old parents? Should the old parents be looked after by him? So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice. Using the interrogative sentence begins with shall, will, should, would, can and could. So here the student keep in mind these structures very carefully. The next, the interrogative sentence begins with WH word why, when, how, oblique who. Here we have a formulas in active voice WH word plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus object plus question mark. Then in passive voice WH word plus auxiliary verb plus subject plus past participle plus by plus object plus question mark. Here I have given examples. When did you complete this work? When was this work completed by you? Who has called you? By whom have you been called? So these are the examples of active voice and passive voice using interrogative sentence begins with WH word why, when, how and who. Next, changing the voice of direct and indirect object. The sentence having two types of object, direct object and indirect object. How do we change the active voice into passive voice using the direct and indirect object in the sentence? Here, number one, the direct object is the receiver of the action in the sentence in active voice. For example, here John hits the ball. Here we can see the underlined ball is an direct object in the sentence, which is the direct receiver of the action done by John. Then indirect object identifies the person, thing for whom what the action of the verb is performed. Now here we have an example of indirect object. My mother bought me a necklace. So now here in this sentence you can see me is an indirect object in the sentence that identifies a thing, necklace in the sentence. So me is an indirect object here. Then changing the voice of direct and indirect object, we have a structure here. In active voice, subject plus verb plus indirect object plus direct object. In passive voice, we have a structure subject, which was direct object in active voice, plus to be, was, oblique were, plus past participle, plus to, plus indirect object, plus object, which was a subject in active voice. So now here I have given examples. Vinod gave her a present. In this sentence you can see her is indirect object, a present is direct object. A present was given to her by Vinod. So this is the passive voice of active voice. She bought me a new book. A new book was bought to me by her. So these are the examples of direct and indirect object in the sentence. So the student has keep in mind the structure or formulas of these sentences. So that will helpful to change the active voice to passive voice very easily. This is the part second video on active voice and passive voice. In this video I have explained you some of the basic rules about the sentences like interrogative sentence, imperative sentence and the sentence having indirect and direct object. So the student has to keep in mind the structures and formulas explained by me in this video. If you like my videos on active voice and passive voice part second, don't forget to like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel Literature Insights among your friends and students of English language and literature.